The outcome of Virginia's 10th congressional district race in November will play a major role regarding which party controls Congress. It's an open seat because of Democratic Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton's retirement. The two candidates vying for the office are Suhas Subramanyam, a Democrat, and Republican Mike Clancy. Earlier this week, Mr. Clancy visited us to talk about a whole wide range of issues today. And today we are joined by Mister Subramanyam. He's a Loudoun County resident, a lawyer, and he served as White House Technology Policy Advisor to President Obama. He currently serves in the Virginia State Senate and is a former delegate. It is so good to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, let's dive right in. We've got a lot of ground to cover here. So what is your top priority? So something that you would focus on in your first 100 days if you're elected?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a state senator right now in Loudoun County, and one of the things that I've focused on in the state senate is our economy and making sure it works for everyone. One of the things that I've experienced, my family and I experience, is rising costs. And so, whether it's childcare, groceries, housing, everything, we've tried to address some of those issues and those high costs. So when people told me about high tolls, I actually passed the very first piece of legislation to rein in tolls. Because of that, we prevented a 40% increase in tolls. And then when people talked about high utility bills, I was actually able to get customers refunds, $300 million or more across the state in refunds for overcharges. And so I've got the experience to actually address rising costs, and I want to take that to Congress as well.
I wanted to ask you here deeper on the economy. So top economists are saying, look, the GDP is solid, unemployment numbers, the labor market have rebalanced close to pre-pandemic levels. Inflation is at a 3-year low. But CBS News polling says 6 in 10 Americans describe the economy as, quote, fairly bad or very bad. And so I'm wondering, one, what you think that disconnect is due to, and are you hearing that as well in your own district?
Sure. I mean, over the past 30 years, generally, we've seen costs go up, but we've seen wages kind of stagnate. And so I want to make sure that, one, we're protecting the middle class, and two, that people are able to start their own business and be their own entrepreneurs. I'm on the Small Business Commission, or I used to be on the Small Business Commission in Virginia, and one of the things I wanted to do is help small businesses get access to capital, help families who want to start their own business but can't afford health care, for instance, be able to get health care, things like that. I think we have to make sure that the policies that we're passing aren't just good for Wall Street, they're good for Main Street and good for families, especially working families like mine.
Let's talk about the 10th district specifically, because we know that, it's typically considered purple. In fact, it's gone both Democratic, it's gone Republican, and while it's been Democratic the last 3 congressional cycles, it appears that swing voters here are really going to play a major role in this year's election. And so what would you say to those undecided voters?
Yeah, I would say that I'm someone who's about bridging partisan divides and bringing unity to what's right now a very divided political system. I just heard in a previous segment Trump saying that the other side's the enemy, and I think we can do better than that. And so that's why I'm endorsed by our current Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton, who's a Democrat. I'm also endorsed by the person she beat, Barbara Comstock, a Republican. They both endorse me because they know that I'll bridge partisan divides, that I'll put our country over party, and I'll make sure that I'm working for the people and putting the people and their voices first.
I wanted to talk about abortion. It is such a big issue, we know, with voters. If the issue comes up in Congress, would you support federal action or federal legislation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to take federal action to protect reproductive freedom in America. And the reason is because since the Dobbs decision, we've seen up to 20 states ban abortion. And we've seen states like Alabama attack IVF and access to contraceptives. And so it shouldn't matter your zip code in determining whether you have bodily autonomy. And I think it's just really sad to see not only are some states banning abortion, but they're also tracking women and criminalizing women, turning them into criminals, turning doctors into criminals. I think we have to take federal action to prevent some of the things that are happening. We deserve better as a country.
Okay, regulating on the state level is not enough for you. You're saying, yes, do something on a federal level if given the chance.
At the state level, I supported a constitutional amendment to put Roe in our state constitution. So there's work that people can do at the state level, but we have to take federal action to protect women across the country.
All right, let's talk about the southern border. We know immigration is a big issue for voters as well. What solutions do you have to try to enact a deal with the border? We hear a lot of candidates say things like, look, I'm going to try to find a bipartisan path forward. But what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. First, we need to send more resources over there. I mean, this issue, my wife, her family lives on the border, actually. Her cousin used to be a Border Patrol agent and on the Texas-Mexico border. And, they tell you that they need more resources down there. So, I know there was a U.S. Senator from Oklahoma, a very conservative one, that put forward legislation that was bipartisan to try to get more resources at the border. But unfortunately, Trump decided that he didn't want border security this November because he wanted to run on this as a political issue. So first, we need to make sure it's not a political football anymore. And then second, we need to make sure that we hash out a deal. I'm pretty open. I think we have to make a comprehensive push for immigration reform. It's not just the border, but certainly the border is where we want to start. And it's not just the Texas-Mexico border or the borders in the south. It's also Dulles Airport right here in my district, where there's actually visa overstays. That's a big part of the undocumented immigrants in our country. And so we need to address that in a meaningful way.
Let's talk about where you stand on the Dreamers. Anything you'd like our audience to know?
Yeah, these are kids who, some of them don't even realize that they're undocumented. And they came over here, because of their family when they were very, very young and have a really bright future. And so we have to get them a path to citizenship, especially if they're doing the right things. I actually worked on the DREAM Act when I was a staffer in the U.S. Senate for a summer. And I was proud to help reintroduce the DREAM Act for U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. And so I do think that we need to protect dreamers. And I think we should make that part of comprehensive reform. And talk about legal immigrants. Like my parents, when they came here in the late 70s, they got their green card within 3 months. They were able to get their citizenship within a couple of years. I mean, now people are waiting 5, 10, 15 years sometimes because of antiquated country quotas or just their H-1B status isn't renewed or their status isn't changed. So we can do so much better. And immigration is our superpower as a country. I think if we can solve immigration, we can really, make strides as an economy long term.
I wanted to ask, your website talks about your volunteer work as an EMT and as a firefighter in Loudoun County, but your opponent, Mike Clancy, is calling on the Virginia Professional Firefighters and Loudoun Career Firefighters Association to retract their endorsements of you. This is after a Patch article reported you were recommended for termination as a volunteer firefighter. That was in 2019 because of alleged performance problems and insubordination. I just wanted to dive in here because, look, my understanding of this is that there's no record of you being terminated, but there's clearly something here that we need to talk about. And so can you walk us through what happened?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a volunteer EMT still, or rather I'm certified as an EMT, and my cert expires in 2026. And I did volunteer as a firefighter from 2017 to 2020. And I think sometimes these things get political, right? And so that happened a month after I was elected to the General Assembly, and now it's magically resurfaced a month before I'm running for Congress. But I'm proud of the work I've done in the community as a volunteer EMT and as a firefighter in the past, and I'll continue to serve my community when they need me. I think this is being brought up because think about how we spend our times. I spent my time serving my community in multiple ways. Meanwhile, my opponent spent his time working at the Heritage Foundation or supporting the Heritage Foundation, which wrote Project 2025. He was a Newsmax contributor and was spinning all sorts of theories about the 2020 election. I think the voters will have a choice in November. Will they want someone who has a track record of service to their community, or they want someone who's spent his time with far-right news outlets peddling conspiracy theories? I
do want to just touch on that. We had Mr. Clancy on our show. You can watch that interview. By the way, he did say he has nothing to do with Project 2025. He said he is not a current member of the Heritage Foundation, but he did say that he has donated in the past, just so we keep all the cards on the table here. I wanted to ask you, so you're currently endorsed by the Virginia Professional Firefighters Association, which we did touch on. He has called for that endorsement to be removed, but do you anticipate that happening?
Which one?
So the Virginia Professional Firefighters.
Oh yeah, they've continued to endorse me. They always have endorsed me over and over again. It's because I've been a champion for first responders, and I wasn't terminated at that station. And a lot of the things he's put forward are not true. I think what is true is that he kept telling people that he was a member of the Heritage Foundation right up until it was unpopular to say that, and right up until Donald Trump decided that he didn't like the Heritage Foundation Project 2025. And so again, if you look at his Newsmax biography on the Newsmax website, it shows that he's a member of the Heritage Foundation, and that hasn't changed. If you look up all my certs as EMT, you'll see that I'm still a certified EMT. You'll see that during COVID that I volunteered my EMT services. And so again, I look at how we spent our time in the community. I also served as a state delegate in the state Senate, and I'm proud of the service I've done to the community.
All right, appreciate your clarity there. Let's talk about transportation. So if you win, how would you help improve the roads and public transportations in the area?
Yeah, well, again, first we have to talk about how people are getting in. Most people work in DC or in the DMV region, and so tolls was a big issue that I addressed when I was in the state Senate. I want to make sure that we continue to address how people are getting through traffic, for instance, and I want to make sure we support Metro especially, because right now there's not enough economic development on the Metro corridor, there's not enough ridership, and that's making Metro insolvent. And so at the state level, I supported measures to make sure that Metro is solvent again in the Virginia corridor, but in the Congress, I want to make sure that Metro has the assistance it needs to continue, and also that they're addressing their financial problems head on, and I know that they are going to try. But part of that is also, as a leader, we need to make sure that we address economic development along the Metro corridor.
Okay, I wanted to ask you a little bit about education. What do you think is Congress's role when it comes to the public school systems? Because some 10th district parents have had their issues with school systems and also the school board, including what is actually taught, what kind of curriculum is taught to students. And so where do you stand on that?
Yeah, parents should have a very important role and a critical role in their kids' education. I've always supported, for instance, when we had an issue with bullying in schools, I supported a legislation and co-patron legislation to make sure parents knew as soon as their student was being bullied, that parents knew. And when there were overdoses in the schools and parents weren't notified, I supported legislation to make sure parents were notified when those overdoses were happening. And so, there's several measures we can do to make sure parents are involved throughout the process, and I want to make sure that's the key to student success is, one, the schools are great, and two, that the parents have as much involvement as they want.
I wanted to ask you something that your opponent Mike Clancy has brought up. He said in a recent fundraiser letter, you said that you grew up in Virginia and that, quote, Virginia raised you. How do you respond to claims that your ties in Loudoun County are being misrepresented, and what would you like us to know about that?
Oh, yeah, that was a mistake made by my digital firm. We corrected it immediately. I didn't grow up in Loudoun County. I grew up in Houston, Texas. But at the same time, the reason he's bringing this up as a major issue is because he doesn't actually live in our district. He moved here a week after Jennifer Wexton decided to retire. And, people have a choice. I actually did get married in this district. My girls were born in this district, and I'm tied here. These are my roots. And so I'm rooted in this district. Do they want someone who's very invested personally in the future of this district, or do they want someone who moved here to run for office for the 6th time?
Let's go ahead and see where you stand on the war between Israel and Hamas. Of course, big issue, on an international scope, and the casualties in Gaza. What role should the United States be playing in this region specifically?
Yeah, our role right now is to make sure that this doesn't escalate into a wider regional war, and that we make sure that, one, that we have humanitarian aid go into Gaza and make sure the people in Gaza who are suffering so much right now get the aid that they need. We want to help assist Israel in getting the hostages back. And so I know there's been a lot of proposals put forward. I'm encouraged by the fact that the leader of Hamas was recently killed, and because of that, perhaps there might be a path to peace now and a path to a ceasefire. So I'd love to see that happen, but I think the long term, I've always supported a two-state solution, but whatever it is, even if it's 2 states, whatever the political solution, I'd like to see that region have stability at least, because I think that's what everyone there really wants.
I wanted to ask in closing, is there anything else that you want to let voters know if you have a chance just to speak with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've served this community for the past 5 years in the State House and the State Senate, and it didn't matter what party you were. I would always answer the call. I would always answer people's calls. Even when people reached out to my office, I would sometimes forward it to my cell phone. Even my cell phone number was sometimes my office number. And it's because I really care about making sure people have a voice. Even if we don't always agree, at the same time, I want to make sure that they are part of the solution. And the best legislation comes from the people in our district. So I hope to earn their vote in November, and I hope to make sure that I can continue the service that I've started in the State Assembly.
Well, look, we certainly appreciate your time, and we really appreciate you being willing to come on and talk with us for 17 minutes. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. And then on Wednesday, Mike Clancy, the Republican candidate for this seat, was here in studio. As I mentioned, if you'd like to see his entire interview, You can go to our streaming channel, WUSA 9 Plus, and look for it on the Watch carousel. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen, which is also where you will find this interview as well.